Welcome to Dog Friendly's first podcast with me, James Waters, and Steve Bennett, the founder of Dog Friendly. The Doggy Podcast with Steve and James. One of the first people we wanted to talk to for our first podcast is our dear friend Deb Bridges. And Deb Bridges has been writing walking books for Dog Friendly for some time, walking with her dog and finding exciting places to walk. And we have recently in the magazine, the latest magazine, has got a guide to the Southwest Coastal Path. And Deb Bridges has put this together about her experiences with her dog Ula and her good friend Neen taking the 630-mile walk across the Southwest Coast Path. So, Deb, welcome.
Hello.
Tell us a little about yourself and your dog walking obsession.
Well, I love dogs and I love walking, so it's obvious you put the two together and it's a dog walking obsession. The best thing of all is to share an adventure with your dog. There's nothing quite like it, and the bigger the adventure is, the better. So it's the kind of not knowing what's around the corner or over the next hill thing, which is exciting, except when it's something you'd rather not see, obviously, like a field of excitable bullocks or a growly farm dog, that sort of thing. But on the whole, it's the best fun going.
Can I ask, Debs, do you prefer to walk Ula on the lead or off the lead, or does it depend on the circumstances where you are?
It absolutely depends on the circumstances. I prefer it if she can be off lead and running around and having a lovely time, but I'll always put her on the lead if there's livestock or any danger to her, or roads, that sort of thing. She's always on the lead. Just better safe than sorry, I always think.
And I presume that Ula prefers being off the lead whenever she can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but she walks very nicely on the lead, so it's not a problem if we're walking through towns and things. She'll trot along quite happily.
And Deb, is this always something you've done? Have you always had dogs?
I've always had dogs. And back in the day, I did a map reading course, and I think that's when it all started to become a bigger hobby, because once I'd learnt to read a map, then I realised you can just go anywhere, and it's key to the walking thing. So that's kind of where it all started, really. With
that makes sense. Yeah. So you found out about how to read maps and then go on walks where you weren't sure where you might end up.
Absolutely.
That gave you a sort of guide.
Yeah. Once you're confident with a map, you can go anywhere basically. So that was quite a long time ago. So that's probably where it started, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, good. So then when did you get the point where you decided, I'd like to do that thing called the Southwest Coastal Path, and how are you going to do that?
Well, that started because we moved to Devon in 2015. So then I noticed it. And once you've noticed it, if you like walking, you like coastal walking, which I particularly like, then it has to be done, doesn't it? It's there, 630 miles just waiting to be done. So I started planning it, and of course, then I had a new dog, a young dog, because I'd lost my old dog, and it became possible to walk that distance once she got to about 2 years old. I realised we could do it, so we started plotting, getting on with it, basically.
Did you think, oh yeah, I'm going to do the whole thing? What, or was it like first you started thinking small and then it just went into, let's just do the whole thing?
No, it started with, I'm going to walk the whole thing. I'm going to start in Minehead and I'm going to walk it in sequence all the way to Poole in Dorset, just like one long journey, but in bits, bit by bit by bit.
Yeah, and when was that? When was that first inclination to do it? Because I know you've only completed it this year, isn't that right?
Last
year, yeah.
Last autumn we completed it, and I first started plotting it in 2017, and then started in March 2018 and finished in 2023 October. That is because there was a 2-year break when COVID came along, and we couldn't do anything. So it took us 4 years then, if you take off those 2 COVID years.
Yeah, so there's no reason except for that you would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
So how easy is this for dogs then? What is it? Just any dog can tag along for a walk along the Southwest Coast Path?
Yeah, I'd say that any dog could, but obviously within their limits. If it's an older dog or a dog that's got some sort of medical problem, maybe they can only do little short bits of it. But for a fit and healthy dog that has done, that's used to walking long distances, does long walks on a regular basis, it's not difficult at all, provided they're also accustomed to the other sort of challenges that you have when you're out there, which is things like traveling on public transport and staying away overnight in odd places and that sort of thing. If they're comfortable with all of those things and they're fit and healthy, there's absolutely no reason why any dog couldn't do it.
We've had a couple of comments on our Facebook page recently about the Southwest Coast walk, saying that certain parts are quite challenging and there are styles. Did you find that?
Yeah, there were one or two places where we did find ourselves a bit challenged by styles. Not many, most were quite accessible. There would be a hole for the dog and that sort of thing. My friend's dog, who was traveling with me, it was a golden retriever. She's bigger than my dog, Ula, who is about the size of a border collie, and she usually managed to squiggle up over through. And once or twice we did have to sort of shovel Bess over something. That's the golden retriever. But on the whole, there were dog doors and that sort of thing. And there were one or two places where the drop was very sheer, and it's really important to have dogs on lead there because they chase a seagull or something.
Yeah.
That's what some of the comments were, actually, people saying there's been a few accidents, shall we say. So
yeah, I believe that dogs do sometimes go over the edge, and it's never worth the risk. It really isn't. And we kind of developed this way of walking because you don't necessarily know what's coming. That sheer drop can suddenly appear. One of us would walk out front. We'd pop the two dogs behind the person walking in the front, and then somebody's walking at the back. So the person at the front would always see that drop before we got to it, and we'd get the dogs on the lead.
Just in sorting accommodation, and I know you live in Devon, so some of the time it's quite convenient, and you could drive and start a walk and then finish at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I know you stayed a few places, but what was the decision on staying? What were the particular points where you thought, we need to stay overnight or a couple of nights overnight for that area?
Yeah, once the drive got to be an hour and a half, 2 hours from home, then we decided we needed overnight stays. Otherwise, the time you've got available to walk was too short, if you see what I mean. So then we book overnight accommodation, and we'd sit down and ring up the accommodation to just check that it was suitable for the dogs. And we'd ask them questions like, is there space on the floor of our twin room for two fairly large dogs? Because sometimes the rooms are a bit squeezy. And also, if we were leaving the car and walking for a couple of days, we wouldn't have the car with us. So we wouldn't be able to put the dogs in the car while we were eating. Is it possible to have the dogs with us while we're eating? That sort of thing.
Still the standard dog-friendly information that somebody would want.
Absolutely.
We know a little bit about.
Absolutely, yeah.
What is there one of the places you stayed you'd go, that was the best place, that was the Southwest Coast Paths top accommodation?
Well, there were one or two places that were just lovely and comfortable and all the rest of it, but the one that really stands out in our minds is Brandy Head, which is near Budleigh Salterton in Devon, and it's out on the coast path. It's a really remote spot, and it's a repurposed RAF observation post, and it's just really special. It's all off grid, and it was just a very exciting experience. And we did that over a 2-day walk. So we walked to it and then stayed overnight and carried on the walk the next day. And you really feel as if you've got the whole coast path entirely to yourself, because you don't see a soul once people have stopped walking past during the day. Because you can't drive to that spot. So it's just lovely.
Yes, and you can read about that in a previous edition of Dog Friendly Magazine, I believe.
That's true.
Thank you. Okay, so if you had to choose the best bit of the whole 630 miles, which bit could you put into the category of Deb's favourite spot?
It kind of sounds like cheating, but it's actually true to say it's all of it, but
That's cheating.
that's cheating. Okay, but what surprised me about the coast path was the sheer variety that you get along the way. There's nothing samey about it. Each bit is so different. So maybe a section that stands out really in my mind is around St Ives and Zena, because we passed through there. It was springtime. All the wildflowers were out, and we were looking at that turquoise sea, which I'd never seen before, and I couldn't believe the colour of it. And because in between us and that turquoise sea, there was a swathe of colour from these wildflowers. It was absolutely stunning. It was completely stunning. So that was beautiful. Another favourite bit was perhaps between Port Isaac and Port Quinn, because that's a real roller coaster bit. You go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And when you get to the end of it, it feels like a real achievement. You've done it, you got there.
Yeah, so, challenge.
Yeah, different places for different reasons, really. Arriving in Crackington Haven in a hailstorm and finding the cafe was still open, and just the sheer relief of getting there, because it was the weather was so we were absolutely soaked through. And I can tell you that hot chocolate never tasted so good as it did.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, different.
It's the relief, actually. that's what
the relief. I know. I thought we were never going to get there.
Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah, different reasons.
So of course now you can spend the next 5 years not walking at all, assumably. But if you were to do something soon, what are you doing next?
Well, funny enough, Ula and I are off at the end of next week to walk around the Isle of Wight. It's about 70 miles, and we're going to take 10 days to do it.
A sniff of a walk in comparison.
It's a mere sniff of a walk, that one. Yeah. So we're going to go around the Isle of Wight. But we're going to carry on walking. She's 9 now, so we're scaling back a little bit on the mileage, the daily mileage, but I'd really like to.
So how many days, are you doing the Isle of Wight? 70 miles?
We're walking for 9 days. We're 10 days there. We're walking for 9 days. And we're doing a small section of it. We're going to cheat, and we're going to do it in the car, because there's one section of it that is almost entirely on the road. And I don't think that's good for either of us.
No, which is a shame, isn't it? But assume there's a good reason for that.
I think it's where it goes around private land that you can't get to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Debs, have you got any tips on what you should take with you if you're thinking of doing the walk?
Waterproofs, because you just never know. It comes on very sudden, I find, the weather out there. Waterproofs, lots of water for the dogs, because they get very thirsty. So that's the heavy bit, lots and lots of water. But otherwise, just the usual stuff. Yeah, the usual.
And what about for yourself when you're walking? Do you tend to walk in proper walking boots if you're doing something like that, or do you?
Yeah, I've got walking boots, I've got walking shoes, depending on the time of year, really. It's one or the other. But you do need something decent on your feet, because some of the bits are a little bit rocky and slippy, so you need a decent grip, really, on your boots. Some of it is lovely flat paths along the edge of fields, but because you never really know what you're going to meet, best to have some decent footwear on and be ready for anything,
Yeah, and although it seems extremely unlikely, as we are talking at the moment, if it's hot, is there shade? Is there much walking on tarmac?
That is something that's worth mentioning. There are places where you really are exposed, and we did have heat. We had quite a lot of heat, and not so much for ourselves, although obviously sunscreen, hat, that kind of stuff. But the dogs, my dog is black and very hairy, and after the first few sessions, I invested in a cool coat for her, which worked really well. Really well.
Brilliant. Good idea.
Cool. Yeah.
We're reading a lot at the moment, I mean, mainly on social media, but also in the press, about this year there seems to be a huge increase in the problems with ticks. Do you come across that at all when you were walking on the path?
Plenty of ticks out there, but we had a small dog medical kit in the bag, and there was a tick hook in there, so we could deal with anything. Plus our dogs are treated for ticks also, so they were usually dead ticks that we were picking off. But you've got to watch out for ticks on yourself.
Of course,
yeah. So if you've just walked through a lot of long vegetation and it's that time of year and you've got shorts on, it's just as well to stop and have a quick look at your legs, make sure there's nothing on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the horrible little things.
And Debs, was it busy?
In some places, we didn't see a soul all day, quite literally. In the remote spots. And then you get to places like Weymouth, where there's just a holiday area and there's just thousands of people, and it's quite a culture shock. But we met people out there in random spots, people from all over the world. It was really quite exciting. There were people from Australia and Germany and all over the place. Just
lovely.
Path. It was great. Yeah.
And did you find the dogs sort of help start conversations?
Absolutely. 2 women and 2 dogs. Everybody talks to you, basically. Yeah.
That's lovely.
So not 2 men and 2 dogs, Steve. So
no. Oh dear.
Probably not.
So if you want to find out more about Deb's journey on the Southwest Coast Path, it featured in Dog Friendly magazine. It's across 2 Dog Friendly magazines, part 1 and part 2, and you can also download the digital versions of the 2 Coastal Path guides from our website, dogfriendly.co.uk/shop. So thank you very much, Deb. It would be great to get you back on a podcast and hear about the Isle of Wight, in a few months, if that's possible. If you're still enthused about it all.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, thank you very much, Deb.
And that also will be in the Dog Friendly magazine, hopefully. Thanks very much for your time today, Deb. It's been great speaking to you.